This task requests a global array where we have English words plus their counterpart in a foreign language. So let's begin by setting up a global array. So this is our main method of our program. So in the spirit of procedural programming, let's put the array up here. Now, Java isn't really a procedural programming language. It's an object-oriented language. So the concept of being global sort of maps across by setting up a let's use public static. By setting up a static, like it belongs to the whole class, the whole project, setting up a static array. So we're going to have a two-dimensional array in this case, which means that we need to have two sets of square brackets here, and let's call it let's just call it words. Okay. At the point of creation, then what we can do is we can go ahead and actually make a two-dimensional array. So this is the array structure, and inside of it is going to be then other structures. So each time that we put in an array in here, we'll be able to form a pair of words. So in this case, our 2D array is going to look something like this. So if I have a word such as hair in English, I can translate that maybe into French as cheveux, like that. And then I can use enter. I could actually use enter even from the top here, like this, in order to create the structure. And then I could do I, and that's an I. And then each time I think of another, so for example, body part, I can put PA in there, and so on. And just keep adding these different pairs of words so that we form a two-dimensional array structure where there are words with their corresponding translation. Let's do, for example, knee, which could do with double quotes around it because it's a string. And then I'll say genou, like that. And one final one, always hard to think of these things, and let's do stomach and ventre. There we go. Okay, so we've got some words and their corresponding translation. So we'll just say that these are English to French words. Okay, so now that we've got our two-dimensional array structure, we now want to develop the project in such a way that we can translate between the two. So let's go back to the main program and let's direct this part of it from here. So let's begin by hard coding in the word that we want to translate. So let's store it in English word, like that, eng word, and let's store the English word, for example, foot. Okay, so how will we solve the problem? If we want to translate this English word foot using our two-dimensional array, how do we solve it? Well, it is of interest to us that this array is a global array because it just means that the array can be used even if we had other functions in the program. For these purposes, this function could be any function. It just so happens to be the main function. The variable has not been defined inside this function, but it is still available to us because it's outside, it's on its own, and it's not within any other function. So what we now need to do is we need to start iterating through the various words here found in English. In order to do that, we must understand the concept of columns. So what's going on here is in column index 0, we see the English word. And further along in column index 1, we see the French word. The row indices would be like row equals 0 here. And if I were to copy that down a few times like this, I could use the tab key to straighten them up. Like this. I could even go one further to make them all line up. And you can see that the row numbers are as follows. Therefore, if we want to access one of the French words, we need to provide the row number first to identify which of these arrays it is that contains the word. And then we need to pinpoint the French word by using the column index 1. I'll just label that these are the columns, like that. And so, in order to move on, what we're going to do is, we're going to set up a for loop that is capable of iterating through the array. The most recent array that was found here was the args array, so we're going to change this to say that it's words.length. It should go green, and we can see that NetBeans has understood that this is a cross-reference to this. Okay, so what's going on here is, if we have found the word, then we can display or perhaps even store the translated French. So let's say if, so we want to know if the word that we're trying to translate, which is English word, is equal to something. In the Java language, when two strings are being compared for equality, the correct thing to do is to use the dot equals method rather than the double equals sign. So in this case, what are we trying to compare it to? Well, let's go to the words 2D array. Let's visit a particular row and a particular column. So which row is it that we're going to be on? The answer is given by the value of I in the for loop. So let's use the word row instead of the letter I here, here, and here. In terms of the column, we can see from labeling our two-dimensional array that the column that contains the English word is always going to be column 0. The column that contains the French word will always be number 1. So in this case, we're going to fix this at the number 0. So if the English word foot matches something in the array, then we're going to go ahead and print the French word. To access the French word, we revisit more or less the same place in the two-dimensional array, but this time we go to the other column, and that will retrieve the French word. So we say retrieve the French word from that row. Okay. At the moment, we know that this algorithm is going to work because we have deliberately chosen a word that is found in the array. Before we go any further, let's test the program. So it's set as our main project, and we can just go ahead then and run it. Okay, and it comes out as PA. Okay, so if we wanted to improve our output, we could begin by doing, for example, system.out.print, and we could output our English word, and then we could say in French is, leave a space. Since we've taken away the ln, all of this will appear on one line. We could construct it all as one statement and put the ln back in, and that would probably be just as easy to follow, and for some people it would in fact be even easier to see it all as one statement, one print line statement. Okay, testing again. Foot in French is PA. If we change our word, then it comes out. For example, if we say knee, then we can say knee in French is genou. Now, what happens in the event that the word is not found? In this case, this is going to go beyond the scope of the task, but in this case, we're going to have to manage the idea that it wasn't found. Let's try a word, something that we don't have. Let's try finger. If we run this, it just comes out with nothing. So in this case, the fact that it has come out with nothing doesn't allow us to proceed and do anything. So let's introduce a Boolean variable. Let's call it word found, and let's set it equal to false. In the event that the word is found, that means that the if statement evaluates to true. So what we'll do is we will flag that the word has been found by setting word found to be equal to true, and then that allows us then, once the for loop is over, to deal with the eventuality that the word was never found. If the word was, let's create a bit of space, if the word was never found, then we can use if, and we can say word found, but with an exclamation mark for not on it. So if the word has not been found, then we do another statement to say that word is not listed. Running the program again, this time it says that word is not listed. Putting it back to a valid value, let's try hair this time. If we put it in as hair and save it and run it, it works. This completes the task. It goes a little bit further than the scope of the task by bringing in the idea of using a Boolean variable to flag up the point that the value has been found, thus allowing us to output a suitable message if, during the running of the program, the word itself is never found. One final improvement we could make is, of course, to replace the hard coding of the word with the opportunity for the user to type in their choice of word. So let's allow the user to choose a word. To do that, we're going to activate the scanner. I'm going to say scanner keep equals new scanner, and in brackets system.in. We can now press the semicolon, even though it's on the wrong side of the bracket, and NetBeans will assist us by placing the semicolon at the end. Anyway, works in a small number of cases. Again, I'm going to let NetBeans help me here. The scanner class hasn't been imported yet. I'm going to use the light bulb to import it in. Here's the line of code that it adds. Further down, we're then going to say that the word is going to be read in keep dot next line. When we run the program this time, we can type in the word that we want, for example, hair, and then it will say hair in French is cheveux. Before we go ahead and type in a word, we should probably prompt the user. So enter an English word. Nice clear prompt stating the language that we're expecting it to be written in. And let's have the prompt and the flashing cursor appear on the same line. One final run. Enter an English word. Let's try I. Say I in French is oeil. And finally, if we run it and we type in a word that's not in the list, such as toe, it will come out and say that word is not listed. I'm happy to say that that is a working solution to the problem. The interesting part of the problem is making use of a two-dimensional array, which is actually global. So even though it wasn't ever mentioned in the main method, it is still easily available to use as if it is in the method.